Soldier, this guy, he ain't that hard to play. It pains me to say it, but if I had to recommend any new player or class to learn TF2's fundamentals on, it'd be Soldier. He's always useful no matter the situation, he has a large health pool making him more forgiving, and his rockets give you a reliable form of damage output. These are all fantastic things for a new player who is most likely experiencing sensory overload in some 200 ping instant respawn 2-fort server and could probably do with a little simplicity. Now, do you want to know something I wouldn't recommend a new player does? You probably got a few things in mind like don't touch Spy with a 10-foot long pole, or don't go to Game Banana and look up Fempyro mods, but I actually want to add another option to that list. Don't use the direct hit. Now don't get me wrong, this weapon is fantastic and I absolutely adore it because you can pull off some crazy stuff with it, but to hit all the air shots, one-shots, knock-ups, and completely unlock a whole new level of skill expression on Soldier, I think I'd have to guide you through 50 pages worth of disclaimers. Like, come, I've actually got the document right here. As you can see, we have the title page, the direct hit disclaimer manual, and if we flip over to the first section, wait, minus 70% explosion radius? That's it? Our rockets just have less splash. That's literally 3 words. What's on every other page? What? Oh. Oh, okay, I see. No, I get you. The direct hit epitomizes the concept of get good, because at its core, this weapon is entirely about skill and precision. You're forfeiting the consistency and reliability of the stock rocket launcher's splash damage in favor of raw power. And when I say power, I really mean it, because just look at all that blue. Our rockets are doing 25% more damage, they're traveling 80% faster, and have the ability to mini-crit airborne targets. Every upside to this weapon just screams domination, but unfortunately, having the potential to deal 140 damage per rocket, aka you can annihilate 4 out of the 9 classes in an instant, comes with a pretty hefty price tag. And it's that little disclaimer we saw in our manual before, minus 70% explosion radius, meaning we have to aim our rockets really well. Gone are the days of spamming at our feet and praying to God our splash damage comes in clutch against some schizophrenic scout main who won't leave us alone, because surprisingly, when you pick up a weapon called the direct hit, you have to get some direct hits. I mean, hey, it's not called the indirect hit, now is it? I missed every shot. A nice shot. I take a look at this visual representation of the explosion radius reduction. A normal rocket can still inflict damage to an opponent when it's fired this far away, which is very forgiving and why I think Soldier makes for a good class to learn the game on. But the direct hit, on the other hand, well, it's a little less charitable with its splash damage. And I'm not gonna lie, this smaller explosion radius can be downright humbling at times. Like, take a look at this clip on Sunshine, where I not only miss all 4 of my rockets on this scout, but proceed to also choke the next 6 shots from my shotgun too. He didn't even have good movement, there just seemed to be a little disconnect between the direct hit, my brain, and my hand. And take a look again on Lakeside, where this medic doesn't even know I have a massive flank on him. He is the proverbial salmon to my brown bear, but nope, no, and nah. I just missed every rock. I suck. Playing this game is my literal full-time job, yet the direct hit so often leaves me wondering, am I actually good at TF2? Because God, is it just so damn unforgiving. There's a reason I was hesitant to come out the gate swinging in favor of this weapon, because the truth is it's really hard to get good with, especially for newer players. You have to be mentally switched on with this weapon, and that's something I actually wouldn't say about the normal rocket launcher. Maybe it's a byproduct of spending 166 days worth of hours in a 15-year-old game, but when I'm running stock Soldier, the game basically plays itself, and I find myself cruising on autopilot during combat. But the second I give up the warm and nurturing love of my rocket launcher splash damage, things start to change, because Soldier's skill floor goes from something like this up to something more like this. And look, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but after an exhausting day of being a niche micro celebrity on the internet, sometimes I just want to unwind by spamming easy rockets at the feet of my opponents. However, there are times where I do want to activate elite level gamer mode. There are times where I want to absolutely dominate a public lobby filled with free-to-plays. And there are times where the stock rocket launcher's damage just isn't really cutting it. So look, what is the direct hit truly capable of? Oh, come on now. I think we both know the answer to that one. The most obvious upside to rocking the direct hit is that 25% damage increase, but admittedly, that doesn't really mean a whole lot on paper, and we can only understand just how insane this stat is once we're actually in game. Usually, if you're fighting an enemy at point blank with the rocket launcher, you can do a maximum of 112 damage per shot, which is enough to kill a scout if he's using the Sandman, which nobody uses anymore, because it fucking sucks, meaning it's gonna take at least 2 rockets to deal with any opponent at close range. However, the big boy direct hit and its damage increase puts stock to shame, as we're able to deal a maximum of 140 damage to opponents at point blank, meaning we can obliterate any light class we want. Now, you probably already know this, I'm not covering new ground here, but I can't really overstate just how damn powerful having this ability is. Is there some overzealous scout approaching you for a duel of the ages? Or what about a sniper? He has your entire team scared to peek the main choke point and, oh, wait, did you hear that? A spy is decloaked behind you and is now gone. You become an absolute menace at 1, shutting down any pesky flankers trying to mess with you and your team, and 2, you can also become a pesky flanker yourself and obliterate enemies before they even have the time to react. Admittedly, it can get a little stressful at times when you're down to your last rocket and you just completely choke the last 3, but more often than not, you just gotta take a deep breath, count your lucky stars, and fuck. Well, sometimes insta-kill a light class. Things do get slightly more complicated with higher health classes though. If you hit a medic or battle engineer with a max damage rocket, they'll be left on 10 HP, which is just an annoying amount to deal with, cause like, yeah, okay, I can hit you with a second rocket, but it would be so much easier for both of us if you just like keeled over, you didn't put up a fight and died maybe? It's also in a matchup like this that the stock rocket launcher is just objectively better, because it's going to take 2 rockets to kill a 150 HP opponent either way, so you may as well use the option with a more generous explosion radius. It isn't as bad when it comes to Pyro, Demo, and Soldier with their higher health pools, but I will warn you to be cautious of that masked maniac, because Air Blast has shut me down more times than I'd care to admit. A good strategy is to hold on to your rockets until you see them Air Blast, and use that as your opportunity to strike, but smarter Pyros know how to play around this, so it can be a slight roll of the dice. 100. Oh, I actually just met Allah. I also find the close range matchup with stock soldiers a little scary too, as they tend to have a much easier time killing you. This is especially the case against competent soldiers, as if they know a thing or two about movement and can strafe unpredictably, you may find yourself back in the respawn queue. The final close range matchup, which is an absolute pain in the ass, is heavy, because even though you may hit 2 max damage rockets for 280 on him, you're still 20 shy of actually securing a kill, meaning the fatty is probably going to gun you down before you can fire off that 3rd rocket. If they're an absolute bot, you might be able to get another rocket off in time, but more often than not, you'll be gunned down like a dog. This matchup does begin to tilt in your favor at medium to long range, but give me a sec, we'll talk about that momentarily. And by momentarily, I mean this is actually the segue into talking about mid to long range combat. Not only is your ability to wipe opponents at close range insanely strong with direct hits, but arguably, what is even better, is how well this weapon functions in mid to long range combat. Traditionally, Soldier isn't too good at fighting enemies from a distance, and that's because 1, your rockets travel pretty damn slow, making them easy to avoid, and 2, you do such a small amount of damage due to fall off. Even if you manage to hit some nice splash rockets on a big group from a distance, you're only going to be inflicting about 30 to 40 damage per enemy, which is definitely nothing to write home about, given how quickly it can be healed by either a medic or dispenser. The direct hit, on the other hand, is easily Soldier's best option when it comes to this type of combat, because our rockets travel so quickly and deal so much more damage, meaning we can actually start to snipe off opponents if we're precise enough. This works especially well on enemies who are fleeing from combat, as they're not only lower on HP, but also tend to move in a more predictable manner, making it surprisingly easy to connect rockets from further away. I can't even begin to tell you how many clueless medics I was able to obliterate for moving in a literal straight line away from me. You know, at a certain point, it just kind of feels like they want to be murdered. Also, killing snipers from long range can be very satisfying too, as even though they probably still have the upper hand on you in the matchup, it can feel real good to put some cocky Australian in their place with some clean rockets. Oh yeah, Age is nice, I'll snipe you. Come on, hit a shot. Oh, you did! The other major upside to this more long-distance combat is how much more safe it is relative to the normal rocket launcher. If you're being harassed by an opponent who is far away and you're using stock, you basically have 3 options. Number 1, you can walk away like a bitch and ignore them. Number 2, you can spam them out with a pitiful amount of damage. Or number 3, and what I tend to do, is dive at them. It's a much more risky play as you're putting yourself into a lot of danger by doing it, but you can use a rocket to jump in, hopefully kill them within 2 shots at close range, and then use your final rocket rocket to jump back out. This is actually my preferred playstyle for Soldier, as roaming the flanks and picking off isolated targets in this more aggressive manner can be really fun, but it is inherently more risky. I mean, compare that to a potential playstyle with a direct hit, where you could literally just sit back with your team and fire off 60 plus damage rockets to enemies across the map without ever having to put yourself in serious danger. If you are feeling ballsy though, you can actually adopt this more aggressive dive central playstyle with a direct hit, but the results can be a lot less consistent. Not only are you throwing yourself straight into the middle of combat, but there's also way more pressure for you to actually land your shots. It can be super effective, don't get me wrong, as if you find a lone light class, you can quickly jump in, pop them with the max damage rocket, and immediately jump back out to safety, but sometimes it just doesn't play out the way you intend. So look, personally, I opt in for a more safe approach with a direct hit by positioning myself further back, but if you're really feeling yourself and want to get some clean frags, the more dive-heavy playstyle can be pretty damn effective, even if it is a little more scary. But do you want to know something even scarier than diving with the direct hit? Sentry guns. If there's two things I hate in this world, it's one, Polish people, and two, sentry guns when I'm trying to play scout or pyro. Now, unsurprisingly, the two classes who specialize in close range combat aren't the best equipped to deal with the long range auto-tracking mechanical nightmare that is an engineer's sentry gun. You're basically stuck in a position where you have to rely on your team to take care of it, which, look, I'm an optimist and all, but this is TF2 casual we're talking about. Or you can choose to inhabit some flank route the sentry doesn't have a sightline on and clean up the occasional unsuspecting victim. Both of these options do kinda suck though, and this is actually where our good friend the direct hit comes in massively useful. Back when I was playing TF2 in 2014, the only time I ever really whipped out the direct hit was when our team was absolutely incapable of dealing with a level 3 sentry, because oh my god, can this thing ruin an engineer's day.
Wow, I'm so glad I just spent the last 3 minutes managing my ammo well, dealing with spies, and establishing a functioning nest. It sure would be a shame if a soldier were to just fire 2 rockets on my gun while I just go get this ammo pack and completely eradicate my life's work. Oh.
It feels borderline unfair how quickly you can take down a sentry gun with a direct hit, as you simply need to find a position where you're out of range but still have a sightline on it, and that's it. It takes 2 rockets and it's gone. Compare that to the 3 you have to use with stock, which also travel way slower, giving the engineer more time to react and repair their gun. An engie can put up more of a fight if they know how to use the Wrangler or have something like the short circuit equipped, but overall, the direct hit seriously shuts down engineer unlike anything else in the game. And the thing is, it doesn't end there either, because if you're up against a battle engineer who is using the gunslinger and placing down mini sentries, it only takes 1 rocket to kill it. That may not sound like much, but minis become a non-issue if you're using the direct hit, and that is absolutely massive. This is arguably the weapon's most objective upside because, yeah, one-shotting light classes is fun, and being stronger in mid to long range combat is cool too, but it honestly feels like you have an unfair advantage against engie when you have the direct hit equipped. And there we have it. That's the direct hit. There's absolutely nothing else to talk about. What's that music? Do you guys hear music? I think I hear music. That could maybe suggest a montage of some kind. Oh, right, the direct hit Airshots. It's really good at that actually. The combination of 1, having a faster projectile speed which makes things easy to hit, and 2, the ability to mini-crit airborne targets kind of feels like Valve was subtly hinting at the purpose of this weapon. I mean, god, when I bought this strange direct hit back in August of last year, someone had literally already named it air traffic control with the description, "You are not cleared for takeoff." So if it wasn't obvious, this thing is really good at punishing enemies who are trying to jump at you. That can be soldiers, that can be demos, that can be jetpack pyros, or most commonly, enemies that you actually knock up yourself. You see, if you're aiming at the feet of your opponents with the direct hit, it's really easy to knock them into the air with the explosion damage, and it sets them on this super predictable path, allowing you to hit a beautiful air shot. You usually don't even need that extra damage the mini-crit gives midair after you pop them up, but god, the sound it makes, the bigger damage number, the little yellow text of the mini-crit, Valve definitely knows how to make a satisfying weapon. The only downside to mini-critting airborne targets, and I use downside very loosely here, is that you'll very rarely hit a double air shot. Because it inflicts 35% extra damage on people flying through the sky, you'll usually only ever need 1 shot midair to secure a kill, so I didn't actually find myself getting that many flashy clips to use in this video. And no, that's not me huffing copium, I I swear I can hit double air shots, okay? I swear. It's also important to note that it isn't all airborne enemies who can be mini-critted with the direct hit. Someone just jumping won't cut it, as they have to be launched into the air by explosions, grapple hooks, or rocket packs. Probably would be a little busted if some poor sniper happened to be jumping his way to the front line from spawn, just for a rocket from the other side of the map to come and give him a quick little surprise. Now before we unpack the main dilemma of this video, I do want to take a brief look at some of Soldier's secondary options that synergize well with the direct hit, and there's actually two in particular which I think need some extra attention. And by two, I kinda only mean one, and by one I just mean the buff banner. It's really good. This is seriously one of the most fun synergies Soldier has going, because it takes your ability to wipe light classes at point blank and lets you do it from anywhere. If you didn't know, the buff banner lets you charge up this bar, and once you inflict 600 points worth of damage, you blow your horn and receive 7 seconds of guaranteed mini crits. Now mini crits are pretty cool, they give us that 35% damage bonus, but the really interesting part is that they ignore damage fall off, meaning our rockets are doing the same amount to both a scout, who is 3 inches from our face, as it is to a sniper 50,000 hammer units away. This means we can hurl 150 damage rockets at opponents on the other side of the map, and it feels so damn filthy chaining long range rocket after long range rocket. I mentioned before that you can sometimes go toe to toe with a sniper when using the direct hit if you're feeling confident, but if you have guaranteed mini crits on your side, that's looking like a pretty damn good matchup for you. The buff banner also just allows you to dish out a shit ton of extra damage. I know it sounds obvious and it's the whole point of the item, but being able to deal over 180 damage allows you to insta-kill medics, demos, pyros, and battle engineers, leading to these absolutely filthy moments where you one-shot enemy after enemy after enemy. The only downside to this combination is 1, if you don't hit your rockets you are fully boned, and 2, you can't stack mini crit damage when you hit your air shots, which makes it a little redundant at times, but besides that, this is a seriously fun combo to use, and probably one of my favorites that Soldier has going. Now the other secondary I want to talk about, which is a little less fun, is the shotgun. And when I say shotgun, I mean either stock or the panic attack, because if you have the audacity to use the reserve shooter, the shotgun that mini crits airborne enemies, I think I might have heard of a weapon like that before. Any guesses as to what it could be? A weapon that actually might do a little bit more damage to an airborne enemy than a shotgun would. You know what item I'm talking about? You could probably even make a pretty good video about that weapon, couldn't you? Now look, I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't use, but if you think the reserve shooter is a good idea to synergize with the direct hit, I fear you may be losing your grip on reality. But no, right, the shotgun. Sometimes it just isn't your day when it comes to that whole aiming thing with the direct hit, and you'll end up absolutely choking your 4 rockets. Now trust me when I say this, but the last thing you want to be doing after missing your whole clip is desperately trying to reload one more rocket and praying to God it's actually going to be the one you can connect. Because in all honesty, you probably aren't going to clutch up, and this is where the shotgun proves to be a super valuable choice. As a hit scan weapon, it's really reliable to swap to when you're out of rockets, and you can actually win back some of that consistency you lost by forfeiting the rocket launcher and its splash damage, which is a really nice safety net to have in your back pocket. Also, if there happens to be a competent pyro who can time their reflex, the shotgun can come in especially handy too, but trust me, it never happens. I don't think I've ever been reflect killed by a pyro in my life, to be honest. As for the other secondaries, we'll do a quick fire round. The gunboats can be good just because it provides so much utility, but I don't tend to indulge in that dive heavy playstyle with the direct hit, so I'm not a massive fan. The battalion's backup is okay, but you don't really need those extra sentry resistances when you're able to 2-shot them from anywhere. It is similar to the gunboats though, as it's just a really good item, so you'll get some use out of it either way. The conch is pretty good, but I just found the buff banner 10 times more fun. Please God don't use the man treads. Also please God don't use the reserve shooter. Also please God don't use the bison, and also please God do not use the base jumper. And so we are left with one important question about the direct hit. Is it better than the stock rocket launcher? Your immediate reaction is probably a resounding no, but I think there is a bit more nuance to have with this discussion. Like, envision a world where you had perfect accuracy and could connect your rockets without fail on both the direct hit and normal rocket launcher. In such a scenario, which option do you think would be better? You'd probably agree with me that it's the direct hit, as although hitting perfect splash rockets with stock could theoretically deal more damage in total, you lack the ability to actually secure kills from longer distances. And so, if you agree with me on that, then theoretically you would also agree that there is room for someone to practice day in and day out with the direct hit, and could therefore potentially outperform someone who is using stock if they reached a certain level of skill. I find this to be a really interesting thought experiment, because having a side grade that can theoretically outperform stock makes for a really enticing weapon design and incentivizes you to practice a lot with it. But on the other hand, we are ultimately human. I'm not sure if it's even possible for someone to achieve the skill level required that would make the direct hit outperform stock. Sometimes we're just gonna miss shots, we're just gonna make a bad decision, and we're just gonna pay the price for it. And that's why the reliability of stock edges out the direct hit here. I also just think that in casual play, splash damage is so damn important. When there are 12 players funneling through one choke point, the stock rocket launcher is always going to be your best bet because it can output a level of area of effect damage that the direct hit can really only dream of. But look, don't let that dissuade you from using the direct hit. It doesn't have to be the best rocket launcher outright for it to be really fun and a strong option. Stock is the best for a reason, and side grades are supposed to function better in some situations and perform worse in others, and that is the beauty of the direct hit. I think it is potentially one of the most well-balanced items in the game, as it juggles that line of skill expression and overall consistency really well. So if you like eradicating light classes, dominating in mid to long range combat, churning out air shots, ruining any engineer's day, but also don't like doing any of that because you will inevitably miss 80% of your shots, then the direct hit is perfect for you. And do you want to know something else perfect? Your heart. Because I know deep down you want to support my channel on Patreon to ensure I can keep making horrible videos such as the one you have just watched. And you're also just such a loving person that you're gonna follow me on Twitter and Instagram too, so I can leverage the clout to find me a terminally online goth girlfriend. You know, I'm eternally indebted to your generosity.